Wolverine, it's all set. Good to go.
All right, this is Comic Book Lexicon. I'm Stephen Thomas.
And I'm Joshua of Grand Rapids.
This is the lead up to Wolverine Volume 2. And we're looking at Marvel Comics Presents Wolverine Parts 4, 5, and 6. This was published in 1988. It's written by Chris Claremont, penciled by John Buscema. It's inked by Klaus Janson, lettered by Tom Orzechowski, and it's colored by Glynis Oliver. So looking at issue number 4, Save the Tiger is the story, and it picks up Wolverine has been captured by Sapphire Sticks and Razorfist. He's now in this ominous dungeon, and it looks like he may be getting tortured here soon. So Sapphire Sticks comes in, and this is the woman who had kissed him, sucked all the life out of him, or made it possible for Razorfist and her to capture him and bring him to the big boss, which is Roche.
Yeah. Dream metaphor for every solipsistic divorcee male.
So now this is where it sort of explains a little bit more about this character, Dave Chappell, the person who had died that Wolverine was investigating his death. It turns out that this is where, in the same dungeon, Dave Chappell had been tortured because Roche is trying to get information about this upstart other crime lord named Tiger, and Dave Chappell was an associate of Tiger.
Right.
However, as they were torturing Dave Chappell, they couldn't get any information out of him.
Right.
They thought that he had died. Wolverine found him. So they're going to try to torture Wolverine and get any information about the Tiger that they can out of him.
Yes.
Okay.
This guy had tortured Chapel to death, but he only thought he tortured him to death, and that was the whole reason Wolverine found him.
Yes. Yes, that's what I gathered from their the dialogue in here.
So they must have just grabbed this guy, dumped him in the river when they thought that life signs had gone. And
I think it says they found him I think it says that Wolverine found Dave Chappell in the desert. And so they may have just dumped him somewhere and he wandered off, and then he passed away. Cuts back to the Princess Bar, and you see O'Donnell sitting with Jess and Hone. She's just having a drink. Basically, he's telling her that he heard or knows that Roche and his boys picked up Wolverine and kidnapped him or whatever. Yeah. And Jess and Hone is like, oh, that's a shame. Like, he's probably going to die just like Dave Chappell did. I tried to save Dave Chappell, but I couldn't. Now at this point, O'Donnell's like, are you going to do something stupid? Are you going to try to save Wolverine? Or are you going to try to save this? At this point, it's just like a stranger.
Are you going to be the hero here?
Yeah. The person I once was, maybe would have, but, I don't think I'm not going to do that now. So this is 14 hours after he's captured.
Right.
And they've been torturing him. They'd got nothing from him. And they're like, we're not going to fail, but we're going to let you rot for like an evening or whatever. And it says, and rest assured, we'll break you, or break you I shall.
Yeah.
Now that everyone's gone, he's all sucked out of life and he's been tortured, but brings his claws out and cuts himself free. As he's escaping, he is confronted by Razorfist, who says that he knew that they weren't going to get anything out of him. He just had a feeling that Wolverine was going to escape.
Yeah.
And now they're going to have a confrontation. They fight. Razorfist throws him in the water, and he goes over the waterfall. And at the end, Razorfist salutes him as maybe would have been a great adversary at one time.
A hilarious looking salute.
Yes, it looks really quite silly. And that ends part 4. So that brings us to part 5.
It's a shame we have to say goodbye to Razorfist butt.
Yeah. This is a strange cover. I really like this, the way this starts out with all these squiggly, like the sun or whatever. The beginning of this issue is interesting because it starts out Wolverine is hallucinating, and he's out in the desert, and he's being marched by Sapphire Sticks. And
Sweat is not easy to draw, and Buscema does a really good job with clearly making it sweat.
yes, yep. Some really nice colors here. I like the... It's hard, I think on the newsprint it really works well with the purples and the pinks.
Mm-hmm.
On gloss or anything flat, that would look kind of like too much.
Yeah, don't grab the omnibus. These things are pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Just go find the floppies. The omnibus is going to look like shit.
That's something we'll talk about at the end. But there's the unique thing about this. Well, we'll mention it now. I'll mention it again at the end. We'll talk about it more. Once we get to Wolverine Volume 2, it's not on this newsprint. It's on Baxter paper. So the coloring is a little bit more flat. This is where you get that really like in-depth, like warm tones and things like that. He's still in this hallucination. Roach kicks him off this cliff into the water. Now, really, he's just in the water after going over the waterfall.
Right.
And now he's thinking about Mariko, and it mentions his foster daughter, Akiko. And then it shows Jess and Hone. She had been following Roach, I think.
Yeah.
So she saves Wolverine, takes him to this like houseboat where she's caring for him. This is a little confusing right here if you're not reading it, but basically she's going to check on him. He freaks out because he's still like half sick, hallucinating, tries to attack her, but then he just kind of passes out.
It's the thing they always do with Wolverine.
Yeah.
You can't wake him up without triggering PTSD, apparently. They even do it in the movie where he stabs Rogue in the chest.
Yeah. So she's nursing him, taking care of him. At some point, he comes to, and we don't exactly know how, but at this point, she remembers who Wolverine is because she calls him out by name.
Yeah.
So she's recalling that he was one of the members of the X-Men who saved her from the Reavers.
So our cliffhanger is more of a spit take on this one.
Yeah.
What in the world?
So that ends part 5. And we start part 6. Oh, we're getting a little out of center here. Which starts with him standing on the front of the boat like a pirate with the eye
Looking
patch.
devil man as fuck.
Looking a very devil man with the hair, the shirt off, and the capri pants.
Stand-in wings with the sails there.
Yeah.
Buscema was I don't think he was specifically going for Devil Man, but I think he was going for like some sort of demonic anti-angel kind of imagery there, because he's a master composition. He knows what those sails would have looked like. He didn't draw that for however long it took him to draw. I know he drew pretty fast, so that might have been a 30-minute page for all we know. But 30 minutes is still 30 minutes. You know what that looks like. You can't stare at it for more than a couple seconds.
Yeah, and I mean, throughout this whole series, it's sort of like what we talked about in the intro. The Marvel way that is John Buscema is totally all in here. Like the turning of the camera all the time, to make it more interesting to look at. The pretty balanced compositions are all here. The action.
The black spotting.
Yes.
Because I didn't even get it when I was a kid. They talked so much about black spotting in that book. I'm like, why are they taking all the drawing out of the picture? Like, they're even explaining it, but I don't get it.
Yeah. So they're out on the open ocean for a few days, and Wolverine's like recovering and recovered. And now it's going to take us back to explain the transformation of Jess and Hone, going from... She's traumatized from being kidnapped by the Reavers, and then she comes back to the bank, and it's going to explain that here. Yeah. So this character, can you explain to me who he is? This is Pretty Boy.
Yeah, he's one of the Reavers. He's sometimes it's like he's their leader, sometimes it's not. They don't really seem to have formal leadership. They just like fucking around and being ruthless. Because at one point, Pierce from the Hellfire Club is like their leader.
Yeah.
So, or Price. So his stature within the group doesn't really matter, but I feel like Buscema drew him wrong. Pretty Boy is like Superman or Superboy's head on like a Terminator style cyborg body wearing leather pants and a leather vest.
Well, explains here, when the Reavers capture Jessamine Hone, they want her banking skills, and they're gonna try to suck those characteristics out of her. But
yeah, the Reavers have a body shop. It's how they apply all the cybernetics to themselves and to other people. But if you've got the tools to do that, you have the tools to manipulate the flesh and neurology of any person, and that's what they're doing to Jessamine.
Yeah, they're gonna try to turn her into one of their own. In order to do that, they have to suck out like her sense of morality and a lot of her personality.
Yeah.
Now, in the process of that happening, before it's finished, is when she gets saved by the X-Men.
Right.
So part of her personality is zapped out by this Pretty Boy character.
Yeah, a good deal of her empathy seems to get siphoned off.
Yeah, but there is still like a little bit of her left. And she's trying to explain this to Wolverine, and he's like, we have no idea that this happened. And she's like, I didn't know either until I got back. And she felt like she had been like in a nightmare or whatever. So when she returns to Madripoor, the Hone Bank did not survive. And
Right.
all of the other people, like the officers of the bank, had been, I believe, killed
Yeah.
during the raid or whatever.
Yep.
And because of that, all the other people involved in the bank look at her a little bit suspiciously.
Yeah. Which, it's understandable.
She's the only one
lone
that...
survivor
Yeah.
in an attack on a very wealthy institution to which you're related.
Yeah, and she returns, healthy.
Yeah.
Or is like physically healthy.
And
at least.
perhaps with a noticeable depletion of her empathy and anything like that.
Yep. So she starts looking for work with other banks, and she, despite her being super qualified and talented, she just can't find work. None of them will take a chance or hire her because of her reputation now.
Yeah, she's a bad penny. You don't want to hire someone who might have murdered the last people she worked for.
Yeah. So she's trying to get answers at this point. She's curious as she has an idea why they don't hire her, but she wants to look into it deeper. So she's breaking into some of these banks trying to find more information. Because as she was being remade by this character, Pretty Boy, she's got all these other skills.
Yeah.
And so she's...
We'll see this kind of happen to a different extent later with some other characters.
Yeah. So the backstory with the bank is basically one of the bigger banks in Madripoor, the Meridian Bank, sees the Hone...
One of the biggest banks in Asia, period.
Yeah.
Right? Somehow on this little island.
Yep. They see the Hone Bank as as a threat to them.
Yeah.
So they hire the local crime boss in Madripoor.
Roche.
Yeah, Roach, to mess with the Hone Bank. Roach then contracts that out to the Reavers.
Right.
And that's just where it's starting to all come together as to what happened and why. So now she's further investigating, and she decides she wants to take over Lowtown as
Yes.
the new force to be reckoned with, as the Tiger. So she's like threatening and beating up Roach's guys and sending them back to Roach, telling them that there's someone new in town.
And this is why she was following Roche when she saved Wolverine.
Yes. Yeah. So she reveals to Wolverine her plan to become the new crime boss of Lowtown.
Yeah.
And Wolverine is like, but I fight people like you. I'm not supposed to be your friend or whatever.
Right.
And I'll just read it because it'll makes more sense. She says, then you have a problem, my friend, because you owe me your life, and I mean to hold you to that debt. I need you, Wolverine. With you by my side, I'm certain of victory. And she's not forcing him to stay, but she's more or less asking him to stay and help her.
Yeah.
And he's reluctant.
And she seems to understand that he's got some sort of concept of honor.
Yeah. And he's reluctant, but he goes along with her. And now they're on this boat where who's ever navigating this boat has agreed to work with her instead of Roach.
There's, she says, a smuggler chieftain who's pledged to my service.
Yes.
And then she gasps and sees crew's all dead.
Yeah, and it looks like Wolverine's like, this looks like Razorfist.
You better watch your back, laser fart. If I ever find out your true identity, I will kill everybody you love. My name is Robot Dick.
His handiwork or whatever.
Yeah.
So she hears a sound and she realizes someone's still alive. As she opens the door to see someone tied up, she's confused, and then we see the explosion.
Yes.
And that's the end of part 6. So this is the end of this part of the video. We're going to have the next part coming soon. All of our information is in the description of this video. My Instagram, Josh's Instagram, and our channel's Instagram. So look for the third part in this series of the lead up to volume 2 of Wolverine.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Very much so.
This is nice. How's it look?
Looks good, babe.